Hello and welcome to the Pleasurepreneur podcast. This podcast will help you create what you desire in your business with pleasure, whether that be calling in your ideal clients, making more money, or creating a balanced business life blend. I'm your host, Regan, pleasure and business coach, published author of A Mother's Pleasure, wife and mama to 3 little wildlings. However you're choosing to listen to this podcast, ask yourself, how can I make this more pleasurable? And do just that. I acknowledge the custodians of the land on which this podcast is recorded and produced, the Wadi Wadi people of Dharawal land. Now, let's proceed with pleasure. Hello, and welcome to today's podcast episode. Now, today it's a little bit left of field, I think. I want to share with you how I choose my mentors and never regret it. And I think it feels just very relevant for me to share right now. I have just signed with a mentor to work with her for another 10 months. So I noticed a couple of things that I think would be really interesting to share with you. And then I thought what would be really interesting is if I share with you how I actually choose my mentors, what I think is important, what I think is not important, what are non-negotiables, and, I suppose the mindset or even like the mind drama that can come up for us when we are investing in a mentor. There's a number of things that I want to normalize and a number of things that I want to bring awareness to and speak to. So if you are someone who is really desiring to have a coach or a mentor to work with, or maybe you're already working with coaches and mentors, but it feels like there is such a hurdle for you to let yourself have that support that you desire, and you would prefer to make it a little bit more pleasurable, then this episode is for you. Now, the realization that I had that I thought would be cool to share was that when I re-signed with my mentor for another 10 months, I reflected back to her that, it didn't feel like super exciting or like, oh my God, this is the thing, or I've found the missing puzzle piece, or like this is the answer to all of my prayers or questions, This is like the secret sauce I've been missing. And that has been something that has shown up in the past, especially when I first started, hiring support in my business for myself with coaches and mentors. For so long, it felt like a really high-pressure decision, like a really high-stakes move. And so because it felt like such high stakes, I would get up in my head about it, and I would have so much mind drama. And, oftentimes I've seen this before as well. We might then tend to try and look at all the pros and the cons, and it ends up taking such a long time for us to give ourselves the support that we know that we want, that we're really desiring, and that we suspect is actually going to help us create that return on our investment in our business. So it was interesting for me to notice that there wasn't that real excitement and thrill and oh my God, I wasn't feeling that effervescence of this is the thing. What I did feel, and I shared this with my mentor, I was like, it actually feels like, the feeling you have when you're going to the hairdressers? And it's not like, oh my gosh, this is going to make me into a whole new person, or wow, I'm going to look so amazing. It's just you going to the hairdressers, but it feels good. It's something that you look forward to. It's something that you're like, oh, someone's going to look after me. I'm going to feel good. There is an upgrade for me here. And that is what it has really felt like this time, and probably the last sort of 2 or 3 times recently over the years that I have signed with mentors. And so I thought, well, first of all, that's a really interesting point to talk to, because I think when we are starting out with hiring mentors, it can feel like such a high stakes decision. And especially if we're investing more money than we've ever invested before, we want to make sure that we will get the return on our investment. And like most things in business, that is not a certainty. Nothing ever is. And here's a red flag for you when it comes to choosing mentors. If any coach or mentor says that they can give you a certain result within a certain period of time, I would see that as a red flag. Yes, we can promise that we help our clients create results, but the timing of that is not up to us. We're not God. We're not, the universe. We are we are able to demonstrate perhaps how we have done that in a certain timeline for other people in the past and for ourselves. But each of us are on such unique timelines with such unique circumstances and characteristics and all the rest of it. So just a note there that, yeah, if someone is telling you they can give you certain results in a certain period of time and they're trying to guarantee that timing, that would have my suspicions raised. So since I've brought that up about, a red flag about choosing a mentor, let's also take a look at some red flags for ourselves, like what we can get wrong about hiring mentors. The first thing that straight away comes to my mind when I'm considering like what most people get wrong about hiring mentors is waiting for the perfect one or the perfect offer. Yes, of course, we want to like do some research and know what it is that we desire help in those areas for our business, noticing where the gaps are, noticing where we are lacking in our strengths in our business. But I do find that we can spend a lot of time up in our heads thinking about the pros and cons, spending a lot of time, energy, and our attention, shopping around pros and cons. And that is actually just really delaying the inevitable of coming to a decision that feels stretchy, coming to a commitment that might feel uncomfortable, coming to, put some skin in the game and investing in ourselves and in our business, So I see that as one kind of tactic that we can like implement where we kind of delay that decision by thinking that we're being really responsible and sensible with our decision. But really, it's just to mask that fear or that discomfort that can stretch us when we are making these decisions. The second thing here that I have noticed when it comes to people hiring coaches and mentors, including myself, is we can discredit or dismiss our desires because it might not seem logical, or because it might seem like too much of a big investment, or because we think like, oh, for whatever reason, maybe the reason is, look, our brain will offer us so many reasons, again, to kind of delay us from the discomfort of this decision. But it might sound something like, oh, you haven't made enough money yet, or you don't have enough time yet to grow your business, or, you've still got the kids at home, like you won't have enough energy. Fill in the blank, When we let our brain find all the reasons why not to, we'll find so many reasons not to. We'll find so many excuses why not to. And when we believe those thoughts that our brain is offering us, when we buy into those thoughts, we won't invest because we'll have so many reasons not to. And that's kind of the purpose of our brain doing that. It's stopping us from going into unfamiliar territory. It's stopping us from investing in what can be uncertain. It's stopping us from potentially blowing up our business in a really fucking great way. And it's protecting us from the success that we can be creating when working with someone to help us in our business. So oftentimes our brain or like logic will say like, oh, this doesn't make sense. I haven't made enough money yet. Like, what if I don't get a return on investment, etc. But desire says, I know this is the next step. I want this. I feel pulled. I can't stop thinking about it. Like, oh, I just love consuming this person's content. Gosh, I wish I could work with her, right? And here's the thing. When you only follow logic, you make decisions based on your current reality, not where you're going. Desire is what takes you beyond where you've been. Logic can only recreate the past, right? Desire is the compass for your next level self. I see desire as like our North Star, right? And I've said this before, so you might have remembered this from another podcast episode, but desire reveals the strategy. And oftentimes it makes no sense. And I think it was Kat in one of my last episodes, and she was talking about looking back and like on retrospect, seeing the desire breadcrumbs all lining up. And so when we trust ourselves enough to let our desires guide us to take that next step, when we let our desires reveal the strategy and move on that strategy, first of all, that's a really great idea because, as I said, looking back, you're like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Of course, I had to do that thing or invite that person or hire this mentor because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten here. But also, the person you become when you decide to value and honor and move on what it is you want, that is an absolute upgrade in itself. So I've said this before, even before I start working with my clients, the transformation that they have made to let themselves give themselves what they want and hire me, that is such a huge transformation for them in and of itself. Like they are already creating transformations before we even start coaching together. So that's something that I want you to remember. Who will you become when you let yourself have what you want? What does that mean about you when you trust yourself enough to give yourself what you desire? What are you proving to yourself when you follow what it is that you want? You know? So if you wait and for it to make sense, oftentimes you're going to stay where you are. But when you do let desire lead, even if it feels stretchy or irrational, that's when quantum shifts happen. And these kind of quantum shifts are the thing I'm talking about, like that transformation. I'll give you a real life personal example. A couple of years ago, I signed with I signed with a mentor, and it was a massive investment to me at the time. And even still, like, I'm like, whew, that is a big investment. That was an almost $23,000 investment. If I was to listen to logic, or let's not even call it logic, like if I was to listen to all the excuses my brain was giving me to not do it, it would have sounded like this. You're not far enough along in your business right now. The kids are still little, you're still getting woken up at night, you're not going to have the time and energy to take action on the things that this coach is going to suggest that you do. You know, you haven't made it far enough yet, or you haven't made enough money yet to be working with that kind of a level of a mentor. Like, right, all of these things. So I actually did some self-coaching on myself, and that kind of looked like just like, oh, are these true? Do I believe these to be true? Are they kind of helpful thoughts? Are they actually going to help me get to where I want to go? And I didn't know why at that particular moment I really, really, really wanted to hire this mentor for that price. In fact, it would have been so much easier if I didn't have that desire, if I didn't really want that for myself. Like that would have felt so much easier. I would have felt like there was no skin in the game, you know? And that's kind of the whole point. Our desires will stretch us. Typically, if we're not being stretched, we're not growing. So think about if you are wanting to work with someone, is it from a place of desire? Is it from a place of just like really wanting it? Is it from because like, oh, I just love being in her energy and I want her content and everything she says makes so much sense to me. But then your brain says, well, you know, you shouldn't be hiring this person because of X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm talking about here. Like when we only focus on the logic instead of desire, we're going to, I want to say like, we're going to cock block ourselves from creating what we are meant to in our business. And so what actually came from a very unexpected quantum shift or a very unexpected transformation that came for me before I even started working with that coach was sitting down with my husband. And look, I'll do another side note here. If there is a coach or mentor telling you you shouldn't be asking your husband, wife, partner, significant other, you shouldn't be having that conversation with them about whether to invest or not in coaching, I see that as a red flag. Like, yes, of course, it is your business and your self, and you want to take responsibility for those kind of decisions. And also, I know that, you know, oftentimes we will share finances. And if there are really big investments that someone is going to draw from bank accounts, you kind of might like to have those conversations with your partner. So I will never tell any of my potential clients to not speak to their partners if that's something that they want to do. The reason being because of this experience I had. The experience where I sat down with my husband, Jake, and I was like, hey, so listen, I really want to work with this person. And by the way, reach out to me if you're curious about any of these mentors I've worked with before. I'm happy to share all that information. But I was like, I really want to work with this person. And you might fall over when I tell you the investment amount. And I just want to share this conversation with you. I'm interested in your input, but I want you to know that I really want this for my business. And I think it's going to help my business. And so during that conversation, I didn't have to, but I stepped into a whole new level of belief in myself, my business. I stepped into a whole deeper level of trust in myself and my business. And I created such, I want to say like profound clarity of where I wanted to take my business. So this was even before I gave this coach an answer. I was like, yes, I really want to do it. And also, I want to kind of run this by my husband. And so, yeah, like just the amount of transformation and growth that happened for me purely from that conversation before I even started coaching, like that I think was part of the purpose of that desire, that desire to sign up with this coach, because following that desire and honoring that and moving on that desire moved me to I want to say the next level version of me. It moved me into that whole deeper level of trust, belief, and, commitment in myself and my business, which, that in itself is return on investment, right? Because when you are growing a business, if you can have such conviction and confidence and trust in yourself and what it is that you're wanting to create, oh my gosh, it is so much easier for things to happen when you feel like that about yourself, when you're not second guessing, when you're not doubting, when you're not trying to look at pros and cons, when you're purely just trusting yourself and your desires and your vision for your business and your vision for what it would feel like to be supported. That is part of the return on investment. Okay, so back from my personal story there. I hope you found some value in that. Let's have a look at the next kind of thing that I can see that really kind of blocks us from choosing a mentor and not regretting it, which is mistaking fear for a no. And then I'm also going to talk about the full body yes as well. So in this podcast, there is another episode you'll find if you scroll down a little bit, and it's called Fuck the Full Body Yes. And it gives you a pretty clear indication of my stance on the full body yes. Now, I used to think that I needed to have a full body yes in order for my decision to be a yes. So if we are waiting for a full body yes to hire the coach or the mentor, that might not ever come, even if they are the right mentor for us, even if working with that person is absolutely going to shift and change our business and who we become as the CEOs of our business. The reason why, and I'll break an entire podcast episode down into a couple of sentences, but the reason why I no longer subscribe to it needing to be a full body yes is because if it is something that stretches us, and remember, if it doesn't stretch us, it doesn't grow us. If it is something that doesn't stretch us, it will be easy to have a full body yes. But if it is something that stretches us, it is going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel scary. It's probably going to bring up some fear. It's probably going to make us feel like all different kinds of things in our body, maybe like butterflies in our tummy. Maybe we'll get the sweats. One of my very first mentors was like, if you don't get bum crack sweat, you're not on the right path. Definitely not a full body yes there. So, right, like when we feel a sense of fear, we can assume it to be a no. Right? Like if there is someone who you really want to work with, and maybe you have a consult call with them or you are having a conversation with them in the DMs and you're like approaching that moment where you can make that decision. And there's a difference between a decision and a commitment, right? Like you can make the decision without making a commitment. So let's just talk about the decision here. If you are feeling a sense of fear, the closer you get to making that decision, or maybe you've made the decision, you're like, yes, I really want to work with that person, but you're noticing all this fear coming up in your body. And again, let's kind of sum it up as fear, but it probably also looks like fear, worry, discomfort, uneasiness, feeling unsure, feeling uncertain, right? If you're feeling a sense of fear, chances are it's not a no. Don't assume it means stop. Don't assume it means it's a no. Fear isn't always a red flag. In fact, sometimes it's like a green light in disguise. It means that you are brushing up against expansion, right? You're stretching into something new. You're about to make a move that requires you to trust yourself on a deeper level. If you have never been here before, of course it feels scary. But fear doesn't mean it's wrong. It means that it matters. I'll say that again because I feel like that was so quotable. Fear doesn't mean it's wrong. It means it matters. In fact, the decisions that grow you the most often come with a wave of fear because you're leaving behind who you were to become who you're here to be. And that shit's scary, right? So try not to mistake fear for a no. Tune in with what it is you actually desire, and you'll find your answer there. You're here listening to this podcast because you are a badass. You do not subscribe to what society tells us about business success and personal pleasure, that one has to come at the cost of the other. You're not here to settle for a life that gives you just enough space and pleasure to have slow mornings with the kids, fit in a Pilates class and make the homemade meals, but still has you checking your account every time you buy groceries, still scrimping on things you never thought you'd have to scrimp on, still kicking ass for free or for a few hundred a month instead of thousands. And you're definitely not here to build a business that makes bank but leaves you bored, burnt out, and stuck in your own version of the rat race. You know you can have both. You know you can make great money in your business to book the family holiday, buy the good skincare, and never have to check your account approaching the checkout again, and live a life that has white space for what you desire to fill it with, to feel lit up and on purpose, present with the ones you love, prioritizing what matters to you most. You know you can have both business success and personal pleasure. You just haven't worked out the how yet. You can either work it out on your own, investing a lot of time, frustration, dare I say a few quits with a baby Q along the way, and costing yourself in aligned clients and missed opportunities. Or you can join us in the Pleasurepreneur Mastermind, where you learn how to create both the thousands a month in your account and the enjoyment in your life and relationships. The Mastermind is the room where you become the coach or mentor your clients have to hire, where you create offers you love delivering and selling with that shout it from the rooftops energy, making it so easy to create sales that feel simple and authentic, not salesy and awkward. It's where you set yourself up with a strategy that is ideal for you and the lifestyle you want to create for yourself that honors your desires and your top values. It's where you meet regularly with a group of like-minded women with the same focus to create multiple four-figure months, leading a pleasure-filled life. You know it's possible for you. You just have to reach out and claim it. Do that by sending me a DM to start the conversation or by clicking on the link in the show notes for more info. The doors to the Pleasurepreneur Mastermind are now wide open and waiting for you. Now, let's get back into the episode. Okay, and so the last kind of major mistake that I see in hiring coaches is pinning your hopes on a coach being the thing or the one that finally makes it all work. So this shows up when someone's secretly hoping that this coach or this offer or this program will be the missing piece, the one that finally unlocks the success they've been waiting for. You know, they're not just investing in support, they're handing over their responsibility. They're waiting for someone else to make it safe, certain, and guaranteed. But no coach is the magic key. You are. And that's another red flag for me. If I'm seeing a, potential coach or mentor who is, saying that I have to hire them in order to create success, that without them, then I wouldn't succeed. That's a huge red flag for me. And sometimes that's not so obvious in their content, but, it's not so deliberately spelled out like that. But it's usually that kind of flavor that feels like a huge red flag for me. And as I said, because no coach is the magic key, you are. Yes, we want to ensure that our coaches or mentors have something we can learn from and help to be the catalyst for our growth and are a few steps ahead than us in whatever it is we want to hire them for to help us with, but they are not the magic key, right? A powerful mentor will guide you, will stretch you, will support you, but they can't be your certainty or your self-trust. That is an inside job. If you believe the coach is the thing that will make you successful, you're already giving away your power. That is not a powerful place to create and grow a successful business. That is not a powerful place at which to magnetize clients and to feel like the person that you can help your clients. If you can't trust yourself, why should anybody else trust you and invest in you? The clients who I see get the biggest results are the ones who've already decided, I will make this work. And the mentor simply amplifies that. Yeah, the mentor simply is the catalyst for that, I think catalyst is the word I'm looking for. I'm taking myself back to chemistry 101. Yeah. So when you stop looking for a savior and start claiming your role as the source, that's when investing becomes a powerful aligned move instead of a gamble. And this is going to take away so much of the mind drama, right? Like I call it mind drama. I think that was from a term that I learned from a woman called Simone Soul. So, right, like we get this mind drama. And what I mean by that is like all these thoughts that we have in our head, and it's like, our brain throwing all these reasons at us and like, oh, but what if this and what if that? And we can start to spiral. And it's like, that's what I'm talking about mind drama. Yeah, like when you have removed the responsibility from yourself and you're trying to pin that on someone else, that is opening the gates for mind drama. Because of course, how can your brain feel certain with your decision if you're not even certain with your decision? If you don't think that you can be the one that creates the success from this partnership, if you don't think that you can be the one to create the change and the success. And I think my reflection recently of how I felt after signing with my most recent mentor and the last few times over the last couple of years. I mean, I've been working with coaches and mentors for the last 6 years, but just really acknowledging that there was no great oh yes, so excited. It's because I haven't pinned it on that person. I know that I could probably choose a number of different mentors, and I still am betting on myself that I'm still going to create success in my business. So now why don't we have a look at some of the ways in which I ensure I never regret hiring any of my mentors. And it doesn't have anything to do with doing months of research, of weighing up pros and cons, of getting references and referrals or following up people's resumes. In fact, I don't think I've ever asked any coaches or mentors what kind of qualifications they have. So what I will share with you are some of the things that actually matter and things that perhaps I didn't think mattered before, but I know now do. They're the things I'll share with you. So here's what I look for when I hire a mentor. I prefer resonance over their resume, as I started to share about. I go by which sounds like cliche, but who do I vibe with? Who is someone who I would want to have a long lunch with and have a really great business chat with where I could learn a lot? Who is someone who I would like as a friend? I really value that resonance and that kind of energetic connection highly. Now, in the past, and I'm talking about, years ago when I was looking for coaches, mentors, that would have kind of blown my mind a little bit. I would have perhaps even seen myself as irresponsible or reckless. And I used to think that in order to be responsible and make good financial decisions, I needed to really sit with that kind of research and that question of who do I hire? And am I hiring this person for the right reasons? And I could probably go through a whole bunch of things and drag it out, not because it would actually serve me. In fact, sometimes it doesn't, right? Because we can get then caught up in the weeds too much, but because it would make me feel more confident in honoring my desire, to make me feel more confident in moving on what I want, in letting myself have what I want, in letting myself choose this person to help me because I think they can and because I want to be spending time with these people. I click with these people. And so I think that's probably reflected in my business growth the trust I've had in myself has really built significantly. The trust I have in making decisions, the trust I have in myself to make financial decisions has grown astronomically, and so has my business. And I think that's so reflective of the way we've been brought up and our conditioning and society's narratives around like women can't be trusted with money and like men need to make the decisions. And like, I cannot imagine guys in business having all this mind drama around choosing a mentor that they want to work with. Can you? And so the fact that I would be questioning my own desires and questioning what I want for myself and my business is only delaying my growth and my success, whatever that looks like. Those external metrics in terms of sales and clients, as well as the internal metrics of like trust and inner growth and, commitment, consistency, discipline, all of those things. So when I am hiring a mentor, resonance matters more to me than their resume. Again, I'm not saying just pick someone you like who you want to be friends with, but I know that you are an intelligent person and you are someone who's very thoughtful and considered and responsible. And so therefore, I wouldn't even have that second thought for you. And I know this because you're listening to this podcast. So trust yourself with that decision and trust that you are connecting or clicking with this person, even if they don't know it, right? Because you're watching their content or you're listening to their podcast or whatever it might be. Trust that there is a reason why you resonate with this person. Okay, the next thing I really look for when hiring a mentor is similar to resonance, but it's energy and embodiment. Like, I want to really feel not even just energized in that person's presence. Like, you don't have to be like an energizer bunny in order to attract clients. But like I said, I want to click with that person and I want to know that they're prioritizing the things that I would be prioritizing. I want to know that there is an alignment of our values and that they're really embodying the work that they're sharing with the world. I would not be wanting to hire someone who is for example, pleasure-led business coach like myself, who is exhausted, burnt out, hates her work, doesn't like her business, etc., etc. Like, I want to work with someone who walks their talk, right? I think embodiment plays such a huge part in having you work with that person and be able to get their magic. And so just to give you an idea of what it actually looks like for me when I'm hiring a mentor and how fast I move, which is important. I think the less time there is between our desires and actually making the moves towards our desires, the more powerful we are. So the person who I'm working with now, I came across her listening to a podcast. So my friend was actually talking on her podcast. And she had a middle of the episode promo for a freebie. It was a masterclass. So I listened to her free masterclass. So I've switched from halfway through the podcast, now listening to her free masterclass because I could get instant access because it was a replay. And literally halfway through that replay, I was like, yep, I want to work with this woman. Like, I'd already made up my mind at that time. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not like some like super speedy, like must contact her right now and sign this moment. But I knew, I was like, oh, yeah, I think she's the next mentor for me. I don't even know if I was really like kind of in the market for a mentor at the time. I've pretty much had most of my mentors back to back, but I don't think there has to be that. It doesn't have to be that way. Anyway, she had actually then reached out to me and said, oh, hey, like I saw you watch the masterclass. We had a conversation and I basically brought up the topic of like wanting to work with her. We had a 20-minute call. Before I even got on the call, I knew I wanted to work with her. I already knew where my finances were going to be pulled from. Like, this is what is possible for you as well. For your clients to be watching your content and being like, I want to work with her. For them to be listening to your podcast or watching your masterclass and then being like, yeah, she's the next mentor for me. And sometimes there is that lag. There is that lag where they've made the decision and maybe they're working through that mind drama. So this episode is not about that. This episode is about helping you to choose the right mentor and to not regret it. So once I have connected with this person and I really feel that resonance and their energy and I see that they're really embodied in their work, I then consider, what does it seem as though they're specialized in? Is that something I'm looking for in my business? Maybe you want just an all-round coach to support you. Maybe you specifically want someone who is specialized in Facebook ads. Maybe you want all-round support, but you also really feel like you want to get your messaging right, or maybe you're someone who is the perfect ideal client for the mastermind, which is you want that holistic support, but you also want to comb through your offers, your ideal clients, your messaging and marketing, and the way you sell in order to start calling in more money, more clients, creating more impact, and having more pleasure in your life. If you were looking for those results, I would be a mentor to have a conversation with. If you were looking at, optimizing and creating Facebook ads, I would not be the right person to talk to. Yeah? So really get clear on what it is that you want support with. The current coach I'm working with, I've signed with her because I really want to grow certain areas of my business, namely my podcast, hello, and my mailing list, and get organized. So she's actually really helped me with like systems, and she's helped me to find my VA and, things like that. So yes, she can help me in a number of other ways, but I'm like, I feel like she is the right person. She seems to kind of specialize in that. And so I think that she would be right for me. So that's another thing I consider. So once I've gotten to the point where I'm like, yeah, I have that feeling, I want to work with this person, I then expect mind drama to arrive. I then expect and normalize some version of maybe 1, 10, 100 reasons that my brain is going to offer me as to why not go ahead and make the decision and commit to working with this person. And I think this isn't a bad thing. Like, I don't kind of notice those thoughts coming up and be like, oh no, shoo away. Like, I can't have any fear, or I can't have any questions, or I can't have any doubts. Like, I think it's actually really good to, kind of air out what some of those thoughts are that our brain is offering us, for the purpose being that we want to make an intentional choice. And we also want to make sure we're in integrity with ourselves, with our values, that kind of thing. It's okay for those thoughts to be there. However, if they are based on fear, like, I don't ever want to make a decision based on fear. That is not how we grow as people. That is not how we grow our businesses. We grow our businesses from letting desire be in the driver's seat, and fear and doubts and uncertainty, they can come for the ride. Like, we don't have to eradicate them. They can come for the drive. They can come for the ride, but they aren't driving. The desire is in the driver's seat. Every time I have followed this and I have let desire lead and let desire be the strategy and let what pleases me and what brings me pleasure be what helps me make the decision, I have won more times than I had expected. I had so much more return on my investment than I'd ever anticipated. And that's another thing I really ensure I am on top of when I am making this decision. Once I have aired my thoughts that my brain has offered me, and I kind of sift through the ones that kind of feel like, actually, should I give that one attention or not? Do I believe it to be true? I kind of assess those and analyze them. And usually I find that they're based in fear. But once I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling perhaps uncomfortable, I'm feeling maybe a little bit scared, maybe I've got a bit of that sweaty bum crack that my past mentor mentioned. Once I'm there, but I know I want this and I've made that decision, I do not start to backflip on that decision. I do not start to become like a flimsy, I'm remembering my trampoline that the kids had before we got this new one at Christmas, and it had holes in it. I don't even know how they did it. It was a good trampoline, okay? And we've got 3 kids, and by the time we got rid of the old one, which they'd only had for like 2 years, it was so like disintegrated and thin, and maybe not disintegrated, but they had ripped holes in it somehow. And so I see that for myself, if I've made a decision and I'm continuing to go back, like question that decision or doubt that decision or let my brain like throw all those fears at me again, that feels like such flimsy, thin, can poke holes in it anywhere kind of decision. And that is the place where we can start to have regret come in, where we start to really spiral and do the thing where we're like, oh my gosh, is it worth it? Is it not worth it? Am I going to get a return on investment? Am I not? Like, asking very unpowerful questions. That is where we are opening ourselves up to stressing about our decision, to potentially creating regret around our decision. The one thing I want to ensure is that when I've made my decision, I decide that it is the best decision I have ever made. I decide that it is already worth my investment before we even start coaching. I decide that I don't know what the return on investment is going to be, whether that's external metrics like increasing my sales or growing my podcast or the internal metrics. I don't know what will come of that, but I decide before I even have that first call with my coach or mentor that it is the best decision I've ever made. And it will not only give me a return on my investment, it will give me times 10 the return on my investment. Whether that is in a dollar value or, as I said, with those internal growth metrics, I decide and I choose to decide that this is the right decision, that I do not need to start to question it. Because when I do, that's when we get those flimsy trampoline energies, right? Like I want my decision and I want to move forward feeling energetically sound and strong, and you cannot poke any holes in this decision, right? That is a part of how we grow. That's a part of how we become powerful. And that is a huge part of how we actually create the return on investment. Because not only are we thinking we might get it, we're actually expecting it. And when we're expecting great things, we see opportunities for great things. We take action in a way that we're expecting those great things. We feel powerful and in control in order to take the action and create those great things. Yeah. So those are some of the things I look out for when I'm looking for a mentor or a coach. Those are some of the kind of red flags that I look out for when I'm choosing a coach or a mentor. And those are some of the kind of processes and things that I kind of consider in the whole decision-making process. So just to recap my decision-making process or my decision-making filter, I do not wait for a full body yes. I follow desire and the stretch when it counts. I ask, who do I become by saying yes to this? And I make the decision work because I decide to. If you want to make investments that you never regret, it is not about waiting for the perfect timing or the most amount of energy or time and space. It is not the most polished sales page or a coach who can guarantee your results in a certain time or a coach who is going to be that missing piece for you. It's about who you decide to be in the moment you say yes. The truth is, the most powerful investments I've ever made weren't the ones that made the most logical sense. Remember that like $23,000 investment? I was not making anywhere near close to that kind of money over a 6-month period at the time, right? Those were the ones that required me to meet myself at a whole new level, to choose expansion over comfort, to back myself when no one else could do it for me. If you want this next season of your business to feel different, not just in how you earn, but in how you feel while you're earning, it starts with a different kind of decision. Not is this the right time, but who am I becoming? And what am I willing to believe is possible for me right now? And if you're listening to this thinking like, oh, this is the nudge I've been waiting for, maybe it's because you already know, right? I don't doubt that you already know. And I also don't doubt that if you already know and you're not making the decision, it's because your knowing is being layered with a lot of those stories that our brain offers us to try and delay us from making that uncomfortable decision. You're not meant to stay on the sidelines of your own success. You're meant to be in a room, in a space, in mentorship that calls you forward while letting you lead with desire, pleasure, power, and clarity. With that really energetically sound, non-poking holes in it, flimsy, like trampoline structure, right? From a place of sturdiness and decisiveness and clarity and power. If you are ready to make your next stretch feel like the most aligned yes, perhaps without the full body yes, I want you to come and join me. Apply to the Pleasurepreneur Mastermind or reach out for private coaching. Now, you know where to find me. I'm going to put the links in the bottom of the show notes here for the Pleasurepreneur Mastermind. The doors are currently open. So the best thing you can do is if you are like, oh yeah, actually, I would like that kind of support and Regan really resonates with me and like I know that she can help me or I suspect that she can help me to achieve these kind of things in my business, that increase in your income, calling in clients easily, doing the work that you love, selling in a way that feels really easeful and enjoyable for you instead of salesy. Yeah, and supporting you on a holistic level through the ups and downs of business. I've had a few of them lately. Then I want you to apply for the mastermind, right? Apply for the mastermind. If you've got any questions in the meantime, send me a DM. I love connecting with my listeners. It's really hard for me to know like who's listening or what you get out of it. The only information I actually get on my Buzzsprout account is how many downloads there are. Yeah, I don't get to see faces. I don't get to see names. I don't know who's listening. So even if the mastermind isn't right for you right now, or you just want to reach out, I would love for you to say hi and let me know you're listening to the podcast. If you're loving it, please give me a 5-star review. That just helps to grow the podcast and it'll help my desire to grow the podcast even more. All right, my love. So that's it for now. As I said, if this is speaking to you, if you know you want my support, if you're feeling that calling, that desire, reach out, either apply for the mastermind or just simply send me a DM and let's have a chat. Sooner rather than later, there are only limited spots. And that's all for now.